All right, everyone, I have 7 o'clock here, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight for the 2019-2020 Alpine Skiing Preseason Coaches Webinar. My name is Ryan Kelchner, and I'm the Sports Director here at the State Office who oversees the Alpine program. As a reminder, this webinar will be recorded and distributed through both email and also posted on the Coaches Resource page under the Alpine section. If you have any questions, please hold your questions until the end. I just want to make sure that we get through all the slides here tonight, and I will address all your questions at the end. Starting off tonight with the agenda, we're going to touch on the 2021 World Winter Games. I want to recognize those athletes that will be attending there. Then we'll jump into the Winter Games dates for this year on the schedule, housing information, registration deadlines, touch on the helmets briefly as these requirements have recently been changed, as many of you are aware, staging, whitetail review of the facility, review of the head coach certification along with assistant coaches and what that entails for both new and returning coaches, events offered, the dates for the race training weekends and what that will look like this year, a reminder of the rules of competition and resources, some on-snow tips, and again, close out with a Q&A. So for the 2021 World Winter Games, we have 2 Alpine athletes that are currently scheduled to attend Sweden in 2021. First from Carroll County at the intermediate level, female athlete Jenny Herman. So congratulations to you, Jenny. Also for the Alpine athlete who's a male for the advanced level from St. Mary's County is Larry Mills. So you guys go represent Maryland well. I look forward to seeing some videos and seeing how you guys do. I wish you the best and bring home some medals. Also for snowshoe, from Category 2 from Anne Arundel County is Lena Camacho. I also want to recognize her. So the dates for the training there will be held at Cuppard Mountain in Colorado during the 2020 SOMD Winter Games. And then the World Games will be hosted in Sweden 2021 from February 6th to the 12th. As that date approaches, more information will be sent out specifically to those counties regarding those athletes and all the information that they will need there. For the 2020 Winter Games this year at Whitetail, our first on-snow training will be January 11th. At this point, you should have received an email that came from me that Zach and I put together to gather all the information regarding your athletes and coaches that plan to be there so we can give Whitetail a heads up on lunches and things like that. The second on-snow training will be held February 8th. Jumping down to the Winter Games, our 3-day event, the time trials will start on Sunday, February 23rd, and will continue into Monday and Tuesday of February 24th and the 25th for the finals. So on the screen here, you can see the tentative schedule at this point for the Winter Games. This should be finalized the next couple weeks or so, but this will give you a very good idea of what the days will look like here from Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So starting off with Sunday, I'm going to cover the ones that apply directly to Alpine here. Delegation registration will start at 8:30 a.m. and that will be located in the control center. There will be a map coming up here shortly that I can show you where everything will be located, and that will give you a better idea then. The time trials will start at 10 a.m. on Sunday and go till noon on their respective courses. Lunch will be held from anywhere between 11:45 to 1:30. The time trials will be at 1:30 to 3:30. Dinner will be at 4:30 to 5:45, and that will be followed by opening ceremonies from 6 to 7 p.m. on Sunday. Moving to Monday, delegation registration. Please note that that is at 8 a.m. currently. That was 8:30 on Sunday, but for Monday that will be at 8 a.m. Again, the control center. The Alpine course inspection will take place at 9:30, and competition will begin briefly after that at 10 a.m., ending roughly around 4:30 at the respective venues. Lunch, 11:30 to 1:45. Alpine coaches meeting will be at the end of the day here after the end of the competition, held at 4:30, and that will be in the staging area. Dinner will be held 5:30 to 6:45. Please note that the athlete social dance will be held at the Ramada Plaza Hotel from 7 to 9:30. That will be specifically for the athletes. Give them a chance to relax from their competition that will be very competitive that weekend. Give them some time to socialize with their friends and just relax for a change. During that time, families are encouraged to attend the family reception due to the athlete social and dance only being for the athletes, and that will be held for them from 7:30 to 9 at the Homewood Suites. Tuesday, a much shorter day, 8 a.m. for volunteer registration. Family hospitality will begin at 8:30, which will be on the second floor of the Whitetail Resort, and Alpine skiing competition will start at 10 a.m. and end roughly around 2:30 that day. Please make sure that your athletes use their lunch ticket before they leave and take advantage of that great food that Whitetail offers. So for the competition schedule, at this point, we do not have the whole schedule set. We're trying to make continuous improvements. We're still looking to discuss it with other staff and GMT members, coaches, venue directors, etc. As I discussed before, I hope it's more of a balanced schedule to potentially add more events down the road, as snowboarding, something like that, that won't make it a big change if that addition is ever made. Housing information. Delegations will be housed in the same general locations as last year. That will be the Ramada Plaza, the Country Inn and Suites, and there's also one more hotel located right in that same vicinity. I'll be working with Jane and Steve on that in the coming weeks, and we'll get that sent to you when that is finalized. So deadlines. So everyone's favorite thing about upcoming competitions, I know, is deadlines. We're coming up in just over a month on our first deadline, which is the training registration deadline. At this point, you need to have all of your athletes, coaches, unified partners, and volunteers into GMS in the Alpine skiing training section. If there's anyone who needs help with that, just let me know, and I have no problem assisting you with that. The next deadline is January 21st. Every athlete has to have a valid athlete medical through Winter Games. You should have already received a spreadsheet that showed every athlete, coach, and unified partner that participated last year, and it will show you where they stand with their certifications. The final deadline will be February 7th. At this time, all of the delegations must have all of their delegation members entered into their events at this time. This is extremely important for your athletes to be able to compete at Whitetail. If they are not in there at that point, they risk being scratched. So again, that is February 7th for that last deadline. As a reminder for coaches, you will need a volunteer application up to date, protective behaviors, concussion training, and a sport-specific certification, which will be the SONA Alpine certification. For unified partners and volunteers, you would need a protective behaviors and volunteer application, and that is all for them. For returning coaches, you must complete one general or one sport-specific learning opportunity to help you renew your certification, and this is good for 3 years. For those of you with no Special Olympics sport certification in their sport, you must complete either the Coaches Special Olympics Athletes course or the Principles of Coaching. If you have any new coaches that have any questions on that, please don't hesitate to have them reach out to me, and I can help them with that process of where to find that and how to complete that. Jumping to staging procedures. This was new as of last year, and it went very well, so we're sticking with it again this year. We've always had difficulty recruiting enough volunteers on Monday and Tuesday due to it being a weekday. This is not in regards to time trials. This is specifically for the games on Monday and Tuesday. We're asking you as coaches to be the escorts again this year because that worked very well. Last year, according to the feedback I was reading over earlier this month, staging will again be at the top of the mountain. This will increase our volunteer base because, believe it or not, when you tell people that they get to be on skis at the top of the mountain, people all of a sudden become a lot more interested, and it'll keep things flowing pretty smoothly. The athletes will have 2 runs, so we ask that you go down alongside them, obviously not in the course, and escort them back up for their second run. After the second run, everyone needs to be taken to the award staging, but that will be back in the rental lodge like last year. We will have volunteers available for those of you who do not have enough hands, but you will be our main go-to there as coaches, as escorts. There you can find a picture of the courses. This has not changed from years past. I just wanted you to have access to this. It's probably something you want to print off. That'll be very useful for your day, both reporting any incidents to Whitetail patrol, and also knowing where you need to be at the right time. So again, here, pretty much the same for those of you who have been involved with winter games in the past. Opening ceremony Sunday night will be located behind on the backside, where you see that yellow text box directing you to the food court, right over there. Opening ceremonies will be taking place right behind that. Upstairs for more lunches is where the control center will be, and that is where the head coaches will check in and get your delegation packets. As I'm thinking about it, the skis for the delegations, we have confirmed again this year with Katrina that they have agreed to house the skis and poles overnight, locked up in the rental center, which is right over there. The ski and snowboard center, there will be signs directing you to that, and we will also remind you on site in those regards. So with the events offered, again, we're going to have the Slalom and Giant Slalom at the novice, intermediate, and advanced levels, and each of those will also be offered as unified races except for the novice Slalom. Also, our race that is increasing in popularity year to year is both of our Super G races. We will again have advanced and intermediate, both traditional and unified. Lastly, the Coaches Fun Race, Super G, will be back again due to popular feedback from you guys on that. So I hope you enjoy that, and it can be a nice time for you guys to relax and compete against each other there. For race training, our first race training dates, again, are January 11th and February 8th. These opportunities will allow the athletes to go through all the gates early in the season to work on their race skills, along with also allowing us to help with some pointers and give direct feedback on those dates. We usually have clinicians and instructors located at the bottom of the course, which can then immediately provide feedback, and I think that would be extremely helpful to your athletes. Everything from you took your turn too early, too late, going more into parallel, things of that nature. Matt suggested that he saw some great improvements over the course of the day last year, and I look forward to seeing the same this year. If you do want to provide a time with a smaller group with a clinician, I know that Kathy in the past has worked to get a specific session for those athletes. So if you're interested in that, please notify her as soon as you can so she can kind of schedule that and knows her availability for that day in regards to a number of athletes, time slots where one-on-one time would be available for her to give. Rules of competition and resources here. We operate in accordance to the FIS rules in the national governing body, except when they are in conflict with the official Special Olympics rules for alpine skiing or Article 1. In such cases, the official Special Olympic sports rules for alpine skiing shall apply. Here you can find some additional links. Specifically, I would check out coaching Special Olympics athletes. That has been viewed very positively, and I've looked through that, and it includes a lot of information that will be important for both returning coaches and new coaches. I'm going to work to also have those posted on the coaches resource page by the end of the week here. General competition rules. To start off here, we division all of our athletes. We go by their event levels, age groups, and genders first, followed by qualifying time second. We typically do not combine age groups. However, if there's only, say, 5 people doing the super glide and they are not too far away from each other's age group, we will combine them to give those athletes the best competition as possible. As a reminder, for both on-snow training and winter games, there is to be no use of tobacco, alcohol, vapes, anything along those lines. Winter games is a little different than some of our events where it is overnight, so please make sure to remind your other coaches, athletes, and unified partners, volunteers, to avoid any issues there. Also, please refrain from using profanity or abusive language to help create an atmosphere appealing to all of our athletes and spectators coming out. As the event comes closer, I will send out a copy of our codes of conduct. It's just a good reminder to everyone, including myself, why we are here, and also how to present ourselves in a respectable fashion. Alpine rule highlights. First off here is helmets. Helmets are required for both on-snow training and the games themselves for anyone on the slopes. As a reminder, this was covered at the in-person classroom training a few weekends back, But for those in the Super Glide, the Super G, my apologies, and Slalom course, you have to have the FIS, International Ski Federation sticker on your helmet. This is a hard covering on the ears to protect against head injuries during races. This also applies to any coaches, unified partners, etc. that are going to be helping out set up the course. If you need more helmets ordered, please reach out to me and I will work to get that squared away for you through some sites that we've used in the past with pretty decent rates, and I'd love to help you with that. In regarding to helmets, now that I'm thinking of it, during an on-snow training, I heard that in the past years, I was just talking to Kendall a little earlier today, that it was a little confusing going through the process of figuring out which helmets were certified and everything like that during the training day, and trying to find stickers that either stuck on the helmets that would last to the competition at Winter Games, or even just throughout that whole day. So we're still working on that. But I'm going to try to find a process that'll be kind of quick, easy, and it'll be a one and done thing for those athletes that come out to the snow training, and then they can keep those same stickers. We can recognize those athletes that, oh, you're good to go. I see the sticker, or whatever we decide for Winter Games, so there's less confusion there. Jump into the 1 minute rule and 2 minute rule. When an athlete falls down, the athlete will have 1 minute to gather themselves and to get themselves on the course to continue going. If the athlete falls again, then that time will be reset for the athlete to again have that 1 minute to get back on his feet and on the trails. If a judge sees the athlete fall down 3 or 4 times, the course officials can make the decision for the sake of the safety of the athlete and others to have them helped and removed from the course. For the start of the race, the countdown is going to be as follows. It'll be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I recommend to work with your athletes to have them being used to going off the same cue each time. That could be different for each of your athletes. Some might want to go right when they hear go. Others might want to wait until the final 5 comes out. So just work with your athletes so they're comfortable, and that's kind of something that's just instinct on that day so they can focus on their competition. Coaching. Once an athlete enters the course area, there is to be no coaching. Of course, on the lift and outside of the staging area, please give some reminders and pointers to your athletes. When it is their time to go, though, please avoid any coaching whatsoever to avoid disqualifications for your athletes. For the Super G, the first run is a practice run. The second one is the time that will be recorded. It's come up in the past where coaches say that their athlete's first time was great, can we just go with that? And the answer to that, in accordance to the rules from SOI, is no. They are required to take their second time and their second time only. On the other hand, with time trials, only one good run is required. As we have done in the past, if you feel your athlete had a good run on their first one, they don't necessarily have to take a second run. I would encourage you, since you're already at the slopes, to encourage your athletes to get that practice in. That will most likely be the same course, maybe even the same weather conditions that they will see at Whitetail for the Winter Games. So I'd encourage you to get your practice in while you're there, but that's just me. So as a reminder, Super G, the first run is a practice, the second one counts. On time trials, only one good run is required. For the slalom course, this is not necessarily a rule change, but more of an update. The outer marker poles will only be on the first and last gate. Throughout the rest of the course, it will be only the turn gates. It might be slightly different from a visual perspective, but that was a rule that was set in place from SOI a couple years back, and the same exact setup will be used at race training. Alpine rules review, we touched on helmets. Also, as a reminder, athletes must wear gloves and goggles. Sunglasses do not count as goggles. Please make sure that your athletes have the proper equipment. And in regards to their ski poles, please make sure they're strapped correctly to their wrists. Some more rules here. There's 2 I want to touch on. Athletes may finish a race on one ski after they have passed the last gate. Again, that has to be past the last gate. Athletes may finish a race without skis if the skis are lost in the immediate vicinity of the finish line. During competition, all athletes and coaches must report to the Alpine staging area at the noted staging time on the posted division sheets. Any delay of that may disqualify the athlete. Again, that is to keep the day running, have everybody have the best competition as possible. So please have your athletes where they need to be at the right times. Some rules here. Adaptive equipment. This is extremely important, so please pay attention to this. If any of your athletes need adaptive equipment, if you go to whitetail.com and you scroll down to the bottom of the page, there's an adaptive equipment section. That's where you can reserve equipment and receive the training that you need to be able to access that equipment. So say you have an athlete uses a monoski, you need to go fill out that information, and they will then contact you, and you can schedule a time where you can go receive that training, and then you're kind of checking the box there of, all right, you're good to go. They know who you are. That training will be good for a few years in the future, but you do need to let them know that you will need that equipment. That is not something that you can just show up to at Whitetail and they will hand out. So a competitor is disqualified if he or she receives any assistance from his or her coach. The intentional tightening of the tether line to initiate, start, complete, or otherwise affect the direction of travel of the skier, physical assistance, kicking the ski, something along that line, performing an emergency stop, in any way just helping the athlete in completing the course. Some more rules here, specifically for hearing impaired athletes. The escort or coach may assist with the athlete getting to the staging area, movement up into the start line and to the start line. We would encourage and we look for other escorts besides the coaches to take on this responsibility for the sole reason of we don't want any gray areas of just because they were a hearing impaired athlete, they took these actions, but as a coach, you might accidentally give them too many pointers or something like that. So we encourage it to be somebody other than a coach. If it does need to be a coach, there will be one other escort there at that time. So for visually impaired athletes, support by a coach will be allowed to ensure the safety of the skier. The level of assistance will be determined in advance by the Alpine jury chairperson. So please, if you have anybody who is hearing impaired or visually impaired, please notify me ahead of time so we can figure out what recommendations would be good to set in place ahead of time there and have those accommodations good to go for the games. Some on-snow tips here. This is just general health. I'm not going to cover all these medications, particularly though each athlete or delegation member who is taking medication should have a supply of their medication. Please make sure that that is in their original prescription containers so we don't have any issues there, and have on file maybe a folder or something with all your athletes and what medications they take, when, and everything like that in case there's any issues that arrive there. For clothing, water resistant clothing would be the best. I've sent out a link that you can go to order some more clothing if you like. There's also a few more that I've come across that I think would be great, kind of team jacket type of stuff if you're looking for new jackets for your teams. I will have that sent out along with this webinar. Athletes should also bring a separate set of clothes they change into in case they get wet, obviously. If it rains, if you happen to fall down, I know if I went down some of those slopes, I would myself. Diet, just be smart about what you eat. You want to have the best results possible, so you need the fuel to do so. Liquids, stay hydrated. In regards to accident procedures, if you are the first one on the scene of an accident, please do not remove the equipment of that athlete. First step you need to do is call the medical team and the ski patrol. Do not call myself, Steve, or Mike first. Please notify them, and then once you're off the phone, call one of us. But once you call them, please tell them the name of the trail, obviously the location of where the athlete needs assistance, and any primary information regarding the injured person. If this does occur, please make sure that other athletes or coaches aren't hovering around that person. Please keep everybody away so that the medical team can access them in the quickest amount of time possible and get them care. Make sure you know the names, addresses, and telephone numbers of any other witnesses. We do need to follow up with them in some cases, so please get that information for us. That would be a huge help for me. Also, please wait for the medical team and ski patrol before you do anything for that athlete unless you were certified to do so. And finally here, please don't volunteer any information or make statements to anyone regarding injuries. That is not the job of a coach to talk to any media people regarding that. That is something even myself I'd refer to Steve or Mike on at that time. So please refrain from doing so. Let me know if there's anything that comes up where people are being pressing and really want to know something. If that comes up, we will go figure that out at that time. But that is the process we'll go through in the case of an injured athlete. So after the incident happens, please complete an accident report as thoroughly as possible. I will have them with me on both the on-snow training dates and the winter game dates. So be sure to cover as many of the points below here that you can see as possible when filling that out. Again, that is very important. We'll get back to the questions here in a little bit at the end. Some additional Alpine info, who's who. This is going to be more for the newer coaches who aren't familiar with kind of some terms that we use. The Alpine team leaders are responsible for all aspects of the course setup and operations, including determining disqualifications, receiving protests from coaches. The team leader is the point of contact for any concern that you have about the venue and its operation. The course officials team, these volunteers run all the aspects of the race itself, from organizing athletes to the start line, and that will be completed to the finish line, and recording the times for each racer calling into the data team. For those volunteers setting up the course, these volunteers reset, dismantle all of the race courses. If there's anybody that you know that has done this in the past that would like to do that again, please let me know, and we'd love to have people where it's kind of easier without having to explain exactly all the distances and everything like that to them. Please let me know, and I'd love to have them on that team. Competition data team, these volunteers work with GMTs for both Alpine and Snowshoe to input the times into GMS, and they will be working with Patrick O'Brien on that. Again, some general terms to be familiar with. Escorts, we talked about this briefly before. These volunteers escort athletes from staging to the race. Will then take them or follow them down to the bottom of the course, take them back up to the top, and after proceeding their second run, take them to staging for awards. Evaluation team, there will be a few individuals that is their sole job during that day to go around and get feedback, see how the day is going. I'm specifically looking for a few athletes who would be willing to do this. I found that other athletes are much more open to sharing with other athletes, and we have a little survey that's pretty quick for them to fill out, kind of voice their opinion on that, and we know that they'll be a little more open with them as opposed to a staff member. Games management teams, these volunteers organize and run the games. Sport Rules Committee, this group rules on protests and considers requests for new rules and amendments or changes due to existing rules. So we have 3 different levels of competition: novice, intermediate, and advanced. In addition, the glide and super glide competition is available for beginners. The events we ran through earlier, but that's going to be the glide, the super glide, the giant slalom, the slalom, and the super G. So that's some information there. If you want to go back and kind of read about the differences in those, you're trying to figure out which athlete would fit well in which event, that should be a pretty good description here. And again, refer to the coach's resource page if you have any other questions there, or feel free to reach out. So here's a little map. I tried to blow it up a little bit so you could see what was going on here. This obviously does not have the exact dimensions of each gate or anything like that, but it gives you a general idea of what the slalom, giant slalom, and super G would look like. Some Alpine general information here. I'm not going to go through all these, but again, for those newer coaches, I think these are some terms that you need to be familiar with to help the day go smoothly. And it's terms that we don't use just for Alpine, but is for other sports. So it'd be easy to jump around to other sports if you choose to do so. All right, for continuous timing. In order to run an efficient competition, venues and allow more athletes to compete, we use a continuous or running time. So this means that once the athlete starts, the stopwatch begins. Say they fall down 30 seconds into their run, that time still continues while we have somebody else with a timer to make sure that athlete is back on the course up and running within a minute. So that is a continuous timing. To clarify, we will wait until the first race athlete has cleared a safe number of gates before starting the next athlete. So with the continuous timing, once the first athlete gets near the final gate, the second one will go, and so forth. But we will make sure that there is a plenty amount of time and distance between those two athletes. If an athlete feels that the athlete before interfered with their run, they are allowed to ski off of the course. So this does not mean that the athlete, if they're not happy with their run, can just leave and tell the officials that they want to redo it. There needs to be some sign of impediment there, and the official will determine that. But again, if an athlete feels that they did not have room to complete their course or were distracted, impeded, anything along those lines, they can go out of the course and go through that again with another run. Alpine disqualifications. Competitors will be disqualified if they do any of the following. That would include missing a gate. Obviously, if an athlete falls, is unable to get up within 1 minute. If an athlete receives inappropriate coaching, that could be both verbal and physical. If an athlete is only 1 or 2 time trials runs, they will be allowed to compete for a participation medal. An athlete may finish a race on 1 ski after they have passed the last gate. Again, that needs to be past the last gate. And you can also finish the race with no skis, but that needs to be very close to where the finish line is. For those athletes that are DQ'd, they will receive a participation ribbon unless there is the occasion that disqualification is for unsportsmanlike conduct, and in that case, they will receive nothing. Again, coaches, no coaching after the staging, as we covered. Awards, the top 3 finishers in the division receive a gold, silver, or bronze medal, respectively. Other finishers are awarded ribbons. DQ'd athletes receive a participation ribbon. For protests, coaches can protest the action or infraction of a course official. If the event of the protest occurs, that will be reviewed by the Sports Rules Committee, and judgments calls cannot be protested. That is left to the official to make at that time. I do encourage you, if you have any doubt about something or you saw it differently, there's nothing wrong with filing a protest. That means that you're standing up for your athlete, and I like to see that. I would want my coach to stand up for me if that was the case. So please do so if the time is appropriate, and we will proceed as necessary. Here are 2 websites that I would encourage you to check out. They are on the coach's resource page as of now. They'll just give you some general rules and instructions. Obviously, with any alpine skiing questions, please refer them to me. My email is listed next to my name there. Regarding snowshoeing, reach out to Zach. And if you have any questions regarding Melissa Anger Sports, her email is there also. Very briefly, I'm just going to touch on some forms. You're definitely familiar with them, but I would like to remind you and for you to see them in case you ever need to refer to them with any questions. As a reminder, no athlete or volunteer may participate in any manner in a Special Olympics Maryland program without a valid and current medical form or volunteer application. There is no exceptions to this policy that will be enforced. Coaches, please work with your area leadership. You should have, along with your area leadership, received a document that shows everything with certifications, when they expire, everything along those lines, but stay in contact with them. They must have proper forms completed and submitted prior to starting their involvement in any Special Olympics sports training. That applies to everybody. That is just for the safety of our athletes as well as the protection for Special Olympics Maryland and its volunteers. Athletes we covered earlier, along with coaches, what those certifications will need to be. So here you can find the 5-page medical application for participation. This is for athletes. I just wanted to throw this in here in case, again, if you ever wanted to reference this or had a question about what all was included on these forms. Volunteers, we covered earlier what they will need. I'm not going to go into that anymore at this point. That is the volunteer application. It is a 2-page form that we have at each of our events. So yes, the volunteer can sign up at the event. We will have plenty of those, but I would encourage you to get that out of the way ahead of time. It is the exact same form. So come and be able to forget about all that, and please have that in ahead of time if possible. So the accident reports, like we spoke on a little bit earlier, this form updated annually should be completed immediately following any injury to any program participant or spectator, or after any property damage to the facility. Here you can find the incident reports, which I will make sure that I have plenty with on event day in case something happens. I would encourage you also to have them with you, maybe in a backpack so it's easy to pull out. Maybe you could fill out as soon as you see it after the athlete has attention to them, and that'll allow it to be as accurate as it can be. So thank you guys very much for coming out tonight. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving holiday, and I hope you have a great Christmas coming up. At this time, if there's any questions, please raise your hand and I will unmute your line. All right, I don't see any coming in at this time. I'll give you a few more seconds here. And if you happen to think of something later in the night, later in the week, anytime, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Both email, my cell phone is probably best also. As a reminder, that's 240-997-5269. Reach out to me with any questions. I'd be more than happy to help you. I don't see any questions coming in at this time, so I will end this webinar. Thank you guys very much for coming out tonight, and most importantly, everything that you do for our athletes, the continuous hours and hard work. They may not always say thank you. We might not always say thank you, but I really appreciate all your hard work, and I know that they go home being a better athlete and better person because of all the hard work that you put in. So thank you guys very much. I look forward to meeting those of you who I have not at the next On Snow training, and have a great holiday. Good night, everyone.